I'm James Wilson, and this is Sleep Bollocks. The world is more aware of the impact of poor sleep on our health, but weirdly, we seem to be sleeping worse. And I know why. It's the bollocks that are spouted by brands and experts that is designed to scare us into sleeping better, but we end up sleeping appallingly. Whether it's experts who tell you that you'll die if you have less than 7 hours sleep, trackers that don't track your sleep very accurately, or mouth tape that just stops you sleeping well, join me on a journey through the world of sleep bollocks. Never mind the sleep bollocks, here's the Sleep Geek. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Sleep Bollocks. Today, the bollocks we are looking at is get better sleep, you idiots. Now, I became a sleep expert because I was a poor sleeper myself. Spent years struggling with my sleep, particularly a teenager at uni, and my family made beds and mattresses. And in that company, the family business, we employed a sleep expert. And he was the inspiration for my career in sleep. And it was because of the attitude that he presented. That actually people are stupid. That the reason they don't sleep is because they don't understand how poor sleep affects them. He was a doctor, I was an idiot. It was that kind of feeling. The things that people were doing were the cause of their poor sleep. And if only they realised how stupid they were for doing these things and realised the impact of poor sleep on their health, then they would surely sleep better. Basically, for some sleep experts, there's a point of view that we need to be scared into sleeping better. That poor sleepers are willfully sleeping poorly. They're choosing to sleep poorly. They're up all night playing on their Xboxes, watching Netflix, drinking coffee to the early hours, getting drunk. This is the attitude of some sleep experts. And to help us understand that sleep is really important, we need to be told the impact of poor sleep. We need to be told that you're going to die if you don't get 7 hours sleep for one night. We need to be told that you are going to, your sexual performance will be affected by poor sleep, or you're going to put weight on if you sleep poorly. You're going to have a stroke. You're going to have a heart attack. You're more likely to get cancer. You're more likely to have dementia and Alzheimer's. And if only you stupid people understood the impact of poor sleep, then you would sleep better. And to those sleep experts, I say, fuck off, you patronising twats. We live poor sleep every day. As a poor sleeper, I know. The people I work with, they live poor sleep every day. They do not need to be told the impact of poor sleep because they know what it feels like. They know what happens when you get 2-3 hours of sleep a night for weeks on end. They know how it's hard to control their emotion. They know how it affects things like sexual performance. They know all these things. They don't need to be patronised by you. They don't need to be scared into sleeping better. And in fact, the message of poor sleep leads to death, that if you have less than 7 hours sleep for one night, you're going to die, that makes people sleep worse. That makes people sleep worse. So this is an example of a conversation I have quite often in the organisations that I work with. I'll be talking to someone about sleep and they'll go, oh yeah, so I weren't sleeping and I decided to read this book, and at that point, like, oh, I know where this is going. I decided to read this book, and it were really interesting. I really quite enjoyed it, but I'm really sleeping poorly now because it told me that that if I have less than 7 hours sleep for one night, I'm going to die. Now, that book is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It sold millions of copies worldwide. It's incredibly interesting. It's incredibly well written. The science is fascinating, but the advice is quite poor. And it actually scares people into sleeping worse. It turns good sleepers into poor sleepers and poor sleepers into atrocious sleepers. At one company I worked with, they had a book group. Yep, you can see where this is going, can't you? They had a book group. And guess which book they read in their book group? So the next thing they have to do is pay me to go in to work with the people who'd been in the book group who'd all started to sleep worse because now they were scared of how quickly they were going to die because of their poor sleep. Now, there are criticisms of Matthew Walker's work around research, but I'm not a researcher, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm going to go through his research and tell you why it is wrong. There is criticisms that this idea that 7 hours sleep is a magic number and having less leads to earlier death. That may be true, but also some people suggested that the research also shows that having more also leads to death. And actually, when it comes to sleep, there isn't a magic number. There is not a magic number, and I can't tell you how much sleep you need. I can tell you how to work it out. And if you actually go back to the episode about sleep trackers, right at the end of that, I talk about the kipometer. So go and give that one a listen, because that tells you how to work out have you met your sleep need, and it helps you understand how much sleep you need in terms of how much and also how good. But it's not a magic number that is the same for everybody, because everybody has a different need for sleep in terms of their genetics, and every night is different in terms of how much sleep you need. So you've had a particularly physically exerting day, you will need maybe more deep sleep, so you might sleep for a bit longer. Had a particularly emotionally difficult day, someone at work's been a bit of a dipstick, you will need a bit more REM sleep, and you might therefore have more sleep that night. It's not a set in stone number. And when people focus on a number, I need 8 hours sleep, James, I'm going to be awful tomorrow, and they get 7 hours, 59 minutes and 59 seconds, they then feel awful tomorrow. Because again, in the episode on sleep trackers, we talk about how poor sleep impacts, how what we're told about our sleep impacts the quality and quantity of our sleep. So when we're told when we focus too much on our sleep, we start to sleep worse. And that is what Matthew Walker's book does for lots of people. I talk to lots of practitioners about this. I talk to lots of poor sleepers, and those people who work day to day with poor sleepers, those practitioners, those people trying to help people sleep better, they will tell you stories of how Matthew Walker's book has made people sleep worse. They'll tell you those stories. The poor sleepers will tell you those stories. But then the sort of like sleep world doesn't really give much pushback on Matthew's ideas. In fact, on an episode of his podcast, this is a good example of maybe sometimes how he operates and how people react to it. He actually described laying in bed, having a lying at the weekend, as sleep bulimia. Now, I think that's absolutely disgusting. Linking what is a serious mental health issue to laying in at the weekend. Like describing it like that, binging on sleep was his justification. It let people binge on sleep, and no, bulimia as a mental health disorder is not just about that. And anyone who has experienced bulimia or has lived with someone who has experienced bulimia knows the impact disorder has on people's lives. And to use it in that way is pretty disgusting. And yet, Sleep World was quite quiet. Now, not everyone was. I'm going to give a shout out here to Jade Wu, because she spoke up about this and challenged it. And then the first I had heard of it was her challenge to him, and I totally agreed with her. And so I talked publicly about this. But we got massive pushback. Got massive pushback from people on calling Matthew out for his behaviour. And in fact, it got that much pushback that the quite a well-respected sleep magazine, Sleep Review, which looks at the research around sleep, asked me to do an opinion piece on it about why, when Matthew Walker and when Andrew Huberman and when people like that are saying things that we know are wrong, these pop science things that actually make people sleep worse, why the sleep world stays quiet. And I'll sort of, in the article, we'll link to the article in the show notes, but in that article, we discussed the reasons, and I think some of it is actually, some of it could be people know him, they know him personally, and they like him. Because I don't know him personally, so I can only judge him on how he impacts people's sleep, and to be honest, I think he impacts people's sleep quite poorly. I can only judge him on how he communicates sleep, and I think using a term like bulimia to describe laying in is pretty disgusting. And ultimately, I think Matthew agreed with me, because he removed the tweet, and then a couple of months later, he removed the podcast. You can't actually listen to that podcast anymore. So at some point, he's agreed that is not acceptable. But people in the sleep world didn't really challenge it. Brave people like Jade did. That then, seeing that made me want to challenge it. But there's people, well-respected people, making jokes about it, defending him. It's fine because he's raising awareness. Because that's the thing you get with Matthew's work. You get told, yeah, but he's fine. He raises awareness about poor sleep. He helps. He makes people understand that poor sleep can have an impact on your health. And again, I will say, poor sleepers know the impact poor sleep has on their health. They don't need to be patronised in that way. They don't need to be patronised in that way. And also, so some people like him, some people know him, but also he's got a lot of privilege. He's got a lot of power in the sleep world. His book sold millions of copies. His podcast, I imagine hundreds of thousands at least people have listened to it. He has a voice that is powerful. Hey, he's Andrew Huberman's favourite sleep expert. So, he must be really, really good. But that is, that privilege and power means people don't want to stand up to that privilege and power. Because if you're a sleep expert who wants to get your voice heard, well, his podcast would be a great place to do it. And lots of well-respected sleep experts do go on his podcast and do talk about sleep. And those people don't challenge him for what he says and how he impacts other people's sleep. Don't challenge him on when he's using terms like bulimia to describe laying in bed. And actually, those experts tell us we're supposed to congratulate Matthew. We're supposed to say, well done, Matt. Because if you're mates with him, he gets called Matt. Well done, Matt, because you've changed your mind on blue light. And we're supposed to bask in that our Lord and Saviour of the sleep world has shifted his opinion on something that there's quite a lot of research that, using the blue light before bed is not having the impact on our sleep that we once thought. Loads of us have changed our mind on that. Loads of us changed our mind years ago on it because we were working in sleep with real people and they were showing us that the blue light from your phone is not the sun. But the message is we all should congratulate Matthew because he's changed his mind on it. So these people around him, these people who go on his podcast, who give him a protection from criticism, that I can understand totally why they do it. It makes perfect sense. And like I say, a lot of those people I really respect and they do great work. And one of the interesting things, because Sleep Bollocks as a podcast is often about how we communicate about sleep. People like Matthew Walker and Andrew Huberman have got a communication strategy that Alistair Campbell would be proud of. Don't acknowledge what you've said. Don't try and engage with anyone who's maybe critical of you. Just remove the podcast, just remove the tweet, and don't mention it again. And that's what we do. But the other tactic that they both use is having well-respected people with credibility as a bulwark against the criticism. So I call these people in the sleep world the 4 M's, the My Mate Matt Mafia. And their job is to go out there and ensure that the criticism doesn't get too much and ensure that we have a more positive view of Matthew Walker's work. And like I said, the book is really interesting and the science is fascinating. But that book is not an intervention, and it's sold to poor sleepers as an intervention. On page 8 of his book, he actually calls it an intervention. It's showing the cutting edge interventions that will help you sleep better, but they're not that cutting edge, and they're not much beyond sleep hygiene. And in fact, once a discussion with one of the My Mate Matt Mafia, he told me it's poor sleepers' fault. We're going back to that idea again. It's poor sleepers' fault. Poor sleepers shouldn't be reading Matthew Walker's book while we sleep. They shouldn't be reading it. It's their fault. They should be reading a book like On Insomnia by Colin Espy. They should be reading that book instead because that's how you treat insomnia. You read a book from an insomnia specialist. You should know as a poor sleeper that despite Matthew Walker's publisher marketing the book as an insomnia tool, you should know that it's not an intervention, that it's a research book, and therefore it is your fault, you stupid people. If you've read that book to try and help yourself sleep better, that is what one of the My Mate Mafia told me about Matthew Walker's book. So it's fine. Some people believe it does raise awareness, and I accept that point of view. Some people believe that you can forgive misuse of language, like using bulimia as a way of describing laying, and I totally accept that. That's fine. They believe it because they know him. They believe it because they work with him, and they believe it because they believe that he does good work, and that is fine. But I think there needs to be a stronger voice from practitioners, from poor sleepers, like actually just challenging those ideas. Actually, this book does make people sleep worse, and particularly people who are already poor sleepers. This book makes them feel like it's their fault, and if we make poor sleepers feel like it's their fault, they start to sleep worse. Any practitioner will tell you that who's working in sleep, and it does highlight one of the problems in the sleep world. There are more researchers than there are practitioners. So a research point of view, researchers who very rarely talk to real sleepers, and if they are talking to them, it's quite a small amount compared to your sort of standard practitioner. Their view is based on numbers and data and looking at the research. It's not based on people's real stories, and therefore they don't understand the impact that this book has. Because when I talk about these stuff, when I write the articles in Sleep Review, or I talk about it on LinkedIn or on social media, the amount of direct messages I get from people saying, "Yep, thank you so much for doing that. I really agree with you." The amount of people who comment saying, "Yep, I really agree with you." So we know as practitioners, we know as people who work with poor sleepers every day, the impact this book has. And what we'd like is like that impact to be at least acknowledged and recognised. And when we're dealing with people, we're explaining, don't listen to the book when it comes to that. Read it as a science book, but when it comes to getting better sleep, you're better off working with someone trained in something like CBTI, someone trained in something like sleep coaching, someone who knows how to coach you through the theory and the research of sleep and apply it to you. So we're going to take a little break now for me to explain to you what I do as a sleep geek. So I am the sleep geek, a man in glasses who knows a lot about sleep, and I work in sleep in a couple of different ways. I work as a brand ambassador for brands like Mattress Online, who I'm working with at the moment, helping their customers, helping their staff get the best sleep they can. I certify products. I have a Sleep Geek certified scheme. Think of it like things like Which or Good Housekeeping, but I'm actually a proper sleep expert, and we try to stay clear of some of the bollocks out there. So we work with brands who have messaging around their product that is reasonable. If buts and maybes, that's what we're looking for. And we're trying to link poor sleepers to the product that might help them get better kip. I also I'm a founder of a company called Kitmate, and we're a group of experts who go into organisations and sports teams to help their people sleep better. We deliver webinars, seminars, drop-in sessions, and have a digital platform. We do sessions on things like general sleep, shift work and sleep and leadership, menopause and sleep, kids, babies and sleep, and also we have the UK's only sleep vet if your pet is causing you to sleep poorly. Our platform is also available to anyone. If you go on the website kitmate.com, you will find that platform. So if you want more information about what I do, go to thesleepgeek.co.uk and find me on social media at thesleepgeek. So as you know, at Sleep Blocks, we don't just like to be negative. We like to point you in the direction of stuff that will help you sleep better. And today, it's actually... No, I may have been slightly critical of Matthew Walker as a researcher and the idea that poor sleepers are idiots that some researchers believe. But actually, there are some great research out there, and I just want to point you in the direction of a book by one of them, Marian van der Laan. This book is Sleep Like a Caveman. Often when it comes to discussions around sleep, Marian and I are on the same side of the argument, where we're more focused on the individual, more focused on your body gives you data that will help you understand sleep better, that you don't need technology, you don't need to be patronised, and you don't need to be told that you're an idiot. So check out that book, Sleep Like a Caveman. Came out in January. You'll be able to find it on your favourite book website. So there you go. Get better sleep, idiot. You're not the idiot. It's the person who's telling you that, who needs to learn how to communicate messaging around sleep better. So we need to remember that we sleep better by taking the stress out of sleep. When we understand who we are as a sleeper, in terms of our sleep need, in terms of our sleep genetics, in terms of our sleep type, then we can start to sleep better. And when we understand the impact our lives have on our sleep, our partners, our kids, our pets, our profession, our diet, the exercise we do, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, the products we sleep on and under, how all these things come together, we build a toolbox and we start to get better kit. Sleep well and hope it helps.